Kal-El 0320. This is part 2 of the review for The Man of Steel. Alright everybody, the verdict is in as far as the numbers with the box office with The Man of Steel. People love it. Fans from all over, fanboys, people that have no idea what Superman is, people that hated Superman. For whatever the reason, there's something about this movie that they connect with. And I'm going to try to go into that a little bit more today. I know the other day, it was for the midnight premiere, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, today, it's around like 7:45, so I'm a little bit more refreshed. You see I got new digs on. Lighting in the room's a little bad, so just bear with me, but I'm definitely going to go into, this is the spoiler aspect of The Man of Steel. So I'm going to try to break it down within a 10-minute time frame, but of course that's not going to be enough time. So I'll probably make a third video about how I feel about it, and today I'm going to try to upload the video from the midnight premiere as well. Now, I did want to touch on one thing that a lot of fans have been trying to understand. The critics' reviews have been like so-so, based on Fandango, based on the Metrics critic score, based on especially Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm going to give you a small statistic before I get into this. So when Superman Returns came out, which is kind of paying an homage to the Richard Donner and the effect with Brandon Routh, they gave that a 75%. The critics gave that in the 2006 premiere, they gave it 75% overall. Fans gave it a 67%. And most fans really did not like it as much because it didn't show or exemplify the entirety of Superman. Like with all the fights, with all the action, it was more so kind of a drama, and it was kind of a relation to the second Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. It even looked like it, but it didn't get a really good feel for this day and time, this age. So for Man of Steel, critics gave this based on the metrics for Rotten Tomatoes, a 57% rating. And then the fans gave it an 85% rating. Now, this has only been 2 days since the movie's come out, so that means that not everybody has even seen this. This other fans review has been based on a long term, since 2006, this is what the fans have thought about Superman Returns, but this 85% rating is what fans think about the movie from just 2 days of watching it. And so they're projecting it to go potentially up to, I think, 130 million. Which right now I think it's been one of the highest ranking, I think, Friday premieres in June ever. And so my take on that, like I said with the last one, is that they're trying to make it to be like how the Richard Donner, they have a bias. They want it to be kind of the set mold of how it was back then, but this is a whole different generation, and this is a whole different kind of movie. And what it does is actually pays respect to all of them. The comic book aspect of the new Superman now, the older one in the sense of all the different characters evolving, and then of course now the current generation, like what their idea and their thought of what Superman would really look like, how they would actually be. Taking from like fight scenes with the, like I said before, the Matrix Revolutions, taken from the epicness of scale, something like Avatar, and molding it into one set superhero movie that, to me, it was a really great dedication. Also, I have to recommend looking at it in IMAX. It brings a whole different feel to it. Now, the 3D is not throughout most of the movie. To be honest, most of it is when the fighting, the action, the flying scenes, that's when the actual 3D actually comes into play. When it's just them by themselves, it's not necessarily there. But then it was actually shot in IMAX. So, of course, Christopher Nolan had a play in that because he's a producer. He loves shooting IMAX. So, Zack Snyder, he did a really good job of actually exploring that. With all the scenes just looked beautiful. The small set pieces, the out of focus shots. Some people don't really like that, but I love it as imagery because I love art. So I'm going to go ahead now and get into the main aspects of breaking it down review-wise on all the spoilers. So be prepared. If you haven't seen the movie, please don't watch this section because this is going to be all about different spoilers of the movie. So, alright, now getting into it, starting now. The movie starts off with a young Kal-El being born. So Laura and Jor-El, they conceive of birth, they conceive of a child. You actually see these little miniature robots. They have this kind of spectral analysis that it's kind of like Mercury, this going back and forth, weaving in, kind of like showing kind of a holographic form of young Clark's heart, and then it shows like kind of how Clark looks. It's so sci-fi-ish. It's just crazy because they show their like worry and concern. It's not this kind of magical kind of birth. It was pretty not graphic, but it keeps you invested into the story. Like, this is kind of keeping it realistic, you know. And it's so sci-fi because once he has a child, then it goes straight into, okay, Jor-El's going to the council. He's letting the council know there's something wrong with the planet, and they hadn't addressed it really how they're supposed to. And what he was trying to say to them is that there's a miracle that has happened, and that we have a way of preserving our planet, but it's not the way that they think it is. They think, okay, well, how can we save ourselves? He's like, well, we're already said and done, but the future is here, and the future can be salvaged and saved. But before he can even explain it, this is when Michael Shannon's character comes onto the scene as General Zod. He comes in and he just starts destroying the council. He takes Jor-El captive. Jor-El says, what is the issue? Why are you doing this coup? Why are you trying to like commit this heresy now? Because the planet is about to be destroyed. Like, we need to actually act now. And with Zod, his motivation is, okay, we got to protect our people. We need to go and find a ship and do this or do that. So he just has a different perspective off the gate. You can tell that he's a patriot of his city, of his country. But Jor-El is thinking long term, okay, well, if you're going to have this and you're going to be a patriot and all that, who decides who lives and who dies? Are you going to try to play God? And he didn't say anything. And so, of course, like, off the gate, Jor-El's captive. But this is where the action starts to pick up, because as Jor-El's being captured, the little machine that keeps on following Jor-El, it makes a noise, and that gives Jor-El just enough time to actually act. And you actually see Russell Crowe actually start to kick and fight, and it's really awesome, because I was thinking, man, the Gladiator is going in. This is Jor-El right here, but Russell Crowe does a really good job with the Jor-El character. Off the gate, you're invested in him. You worry about what's going to happen to him. Even though people have seen the older ones and they know, okay, the planet is going to destroy it, how is he going to make it alive? His dedication to his country, ultimately through his son, is shown in just the way he fights and the way he makes it out. He tries to go and actually finds the location of this relic that they've been using to actually clone the population of Krypton, and they've been using that to actually artificially inseminate like people to actually have births. But what happened was they messed up their supply of human resources, and so because of that, they exhausted all their resources, and the planet eventually had issues. But I don't want to go into the specifics of that. You got to look at that for yourself. But what is the key is the fact that Clark, or Kal-El, or Superman is the first natural birth in, I guess, I can't remember if it was hundreds or centuries, but this was the first natural birth. And so what Jor-El is thinking is that if I can save my child, and we can actually have this to be reproductive, we can save the city in a sense. But what ends up happening, of course, is that there is a big showdown between Zod and Jor-El and Laura, and things get very heated very quickly. But I'm not going to lie to you, Jor-El does everything he possibly can to protect his son. Man, he gives Zod a run for his money. Like, he throws down. It's really epic. So of course we all know that Clark is going to get sent off to Earth, but it's barely, y'all. Like, when you're looking at it and you're looking at the imagery of just the city and just Krypton and itself, you see it's like a planet. It's very vast, but it's decaying. And it's so hectic at this point that you never know what could really happen. And of course, somebody dies. And of course, the planet ultimately does get destroyed. So anybody that had like a revelation that, okay, it might be salvaged, or rumors that the planet was going to be okay, no, it didn't make it. And Kal-El is actually ported out. But the interesting thing is that General Zod, just kind of like how with the older movies, he's banished to the Phantom Zone. And so from there it kicks off into, it doesn't go straight into Clark's childhood just like Superman or the older one, but with this one, it goes to straight to his adulthood. So anybody that's seen the comic book Birthright, you'll respect this because it goes into just like that, where Clark is taking these odd jobs. He's going doing these vast different things of trying to find himself, but all throughout the pacing goes back and forth from his childhood. So say like take one scene where he's going and he's on the fishing boat. He's working with these guys on the fishing boat, and these guys are like, why are you even here? Like, you're a country guy. Like, it doesn't make sense for you to be here. And it's a purpose why he's there. He's trying to find something, and you find out this oil tanker is just being destroyed. And he goes and bare shirted, and he just goes and saves everybody. And he ends up falls into the water. And so that's when like one of the cut scenes go back, and it's interesting because it shows when he was in the water and he was just not moving, where he just starts having his abilities start happening when he's around like 12 or maybe 8 years old, and it just burdens him so badly. Like his teacher's asking him, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? He just couldn't focus. He was hearing everything, he was seeing everything, and it wasn't like kind of like how with Smallville or like the other ones where he sees like skeletons. He's seeing like muscular structures and bodily things and hearing everything. It's enough to drive anybody crazy. And so what ends up happening is he goes to a closet and he hides himself, and he hears them all talking about him, calling him a freak. And it's just a hard burden to have. Anybody, if you think about being in that situation, how would you be able to handle all those superpowers? And I think what the director and the producer does so well, and even goes back to the writing, is that our superpowers really that much of a great thing, or they're more so a responsibility and a burden. And when you think about that, like, it makes more value come to the person like Superman, because everybody thinks of him, he just got all these powers and it's just all good and gravy. But no, it's a big burden and it's a lot of responsibility. It's not always necessarily the good thing, you know. And so how he uses that, that's a whole different thing. And so then the flashback goes back to where his mom was just talking to him, and she was trying to get him to focus and hone in and think about his powers, and she was like, focus on my voice, like I'm an island on the ocean. And she was like, can you see it? And he was like, yeah, I can hear it, Mom, I can see it. And then they hug, they embrace, and it goes back to Clark. Now he's still in the water, and he's seeing these whales going through, and it's a mother whale and a baby whale. And so of course he thinks back to his lessons that he learned from his mom about focus and about going through, but then it makes him think about home. So it goes through so many different cycles. I don't want to go into everything, but it goes back and forth from these odd jobs that Clark takes to him thinking back to why he's supposed to be who he's supposed to be and what was actually sacrificed back then. So there's a big scene with the tornado scene, and I talked about this in the last review, but there's where Jonathan Kent, where it's a lot of flashbacks with him. It's really good. Kevin Costner is on rare form with this one, but with this specific scene, him and Jonathan were actually fighting because he was upset. He was like, I want to be normal, I want to go. And I was thinking, this is just like a Smallville episode. It was so cool. But what ended up happening was he was like, I want to leave. And he's like, you're just a solid firmer, like you can't tell me anything. And Martha's in the back seat like, what's wrong with you? And all of a sudden a tornado comes, and like Jonathan gets out of the car. He said immediately, y'all need to go to the shelter, go back and run. And Jonathan actually, as a hero, he starts trying to get people to get out of their cars and get off the highway. And so they get to Underbaron where they're supposed to be, but then they realize that the dog's still in there. And so some people would debate, okay, you should have left the dog there. But it was the internet that Jonathan thought he could get to the thing in time to be able to get the dog out, which I understand, especially if it's a family dog. But what ends up happening is Jonathan goes back to the car, and he gets stuck. There's a car that smashes into the thing, and he's stuck there. And you're looking at Clark, and Clark is looking at his mom, who's like, hold on, I'm going to be there. And Jonathan instinctively told him, do not go and show your powers at all. It's even explored because the scene before that comes up from the flashback is where actually Clark is talking to somebody, and he's telling them, look, this is the lesson that I learned from my dad, and this is the reason why I haven't shown myself to the world until the time is completely right. And Jonathan, he finally makes it out of the car. He gets to the point where he's about to make it, and you notice the tornado's right there, and it's about to sweep everyone away. And Clark is looking, and he's about to go and save him. Honestly, with the powers that Clark has, he probably could have flown around and stopped the tornado. but his dad just holds up his hand, and you just see like his dedication to sacrifice. And if you think about it internally, like, wow, that doesn't make sense. I could have saved you, but his devotion and character to his son is that your life is more important than mine, and the fact that who you're called to be is even greater than you can even realize. This is not the time. The time is not now. And when the time is ready, you'll be able to do, but not in this instance. I'll sacrifice myself for you to do what you're called to do. And it was just a beautiful scene because Clark was he was broken. And it motivated him, in my opinion, to really go out and actually start doing and saving people and actually doing these things. Not trying to disobey his dad, but doing what he can to find himself and be that person that he needs to be. So that was really one of the most climactic moments. But, okay, transferred to a couple times later, he eventually gets to a location where he finds, not necessarily the Fortress of Solitude, but he finds a ship. That was an ancient ship of Krypton that had been there. I can't tell you how many years, but he finds his destiny. And his dad, when he actually perpetuated him out, he had a crystal with him. That same exact crystal, it activated the ship, and it used actually the ship to show Jor-El and a kind of simulated kind of form where it's just his consciousness. So if anybody's seen like Smallville or season 9 or Smallville season 10, that was the case there as well, which is really cool. But with this one, like, he was able to interact, he was able to tell him everything that he really wanted to, and he showed him, of course, the suit, and he told him, like, look, you're called for greater things, you're called to save these people, not to just be there and coexist. Like, you're going to show them how to actually soar into the stars. But he told him, you're going to have to push yourself. And so Clark puts on the suit. And this is when it's so funny because Clark doesn't know how to fly yet. He's pushed himself. He has strength. He knows laser vision. He knows X-ray vision. But flight is something he hasn't dawned yet, truly. And he gets the suit and he starts trying to actually jump and fly and jump and fly. And he starts noting that he can will himself to do it, but he's struggling, and which it humanizes him. It makes it really cool. But then when he finally does go and just think and focus, just kind of like how his parent taught him, like his human parents, he's able to actually soar. And it actually is just like a muscle almost. You can see, like, when he's actually going, he's like, wow, this is awesome. You can see all over his face he's enjoying himself. And it brings so much more to the table as far as the movie, because you're like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm a part of this. Like, this is how I would react if I'm actually flying. So anybody that's seen Chronicle, that same kind of reaction is how Clark was actually reacting, which is really cool. But at this point, when he finally gets back, and he goes and meets his mother and stuff like that, he realizes that somebody is out to get him, because there is now a flying saucer or alien ship in the skies, and there's a broadcast, which anybody that's seen the trailer, of course, is General Zod, that you are not alone, that there's an alien amongst you that has been living with you for 30-some years, and I want him back. And of course, I can't spoil you the beginning, but it was like General Zod blamed not only Jor-El, but he was like blaming Laura. He was like, I'm going to get your son, whether you like it or not. And he's, because Clark, with the ship that he was brought up with, that relic, it was brought with him. But what Zod didn't know is that it was actually inside of Clark, which was really crazy. But anyway, it was just so many different things, because from this point on, Clark has to sacrifice showing himself to the world. He actually makes himself available to the world and showing them who he is, and the fact that, okay, you can chain me up, you can get me to these people, because I care more about lives being saved than keeping myself in the shadows. And like the military are looking at him, and Lois actually got a interview with him, and she was talking